Hello, everyone, and welcome to LA Times Talks at the Sundance Film Festival. I'm Tracy Brown, a reporter from the LA Times, and today we're here to talk about the movie Am I Okay? With directors Tig Notaro and Stephanie Allynne, writer Lauren Pomerantz, and the stars Dakota Johnson and Sonoya Mizuno. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Well, to get started, I think, not everyone who sees this video is going to have had a chance to see this movie. So if Tig and Stephanie, you can maybe, give us a little rundown of what the movie is about, and for people who haven't had a chance to see it yet.
Okay, this is a story about female friendship. It's a story about finding yourself later in life or later than you think you should have. And it stars Dakota Johnson and Sonoya Mizuno.
For back to Tig and Stephanie, this is your feature directorial debut. So I guess what struck you about like this story? What made this the one where you're like, oh, I want to make this movie?
Well, I had worked previously with Lauren, and we had a really enjoyable time, and I really, I just felt like the script was so funny, and I think on more of a personal level, that's where you related, wouldn't you say, Stephanie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had I connected very much to Lauren's story and to the story of Lucy. And Tig and I had kind of experienced my coming out together, and so we had, we just had a personal connection to it, and then of course loved.
Lauren, from what I understand, a lot of your previous work has been in television. So for you, like, what did it take to sit down and be like, oh, I'm going to write a movie? I think it's a lot easier to think about it than to actually do it.
Yeah, I had always wanted to do it. It was something that I always wanted to try. And I started writing this more as like just a friendship story while I was working my like TV day job. And then I actually like quit that job to finish writing it because I knew that I probably would never finish it if I was still working. So I did that. And then I uh, simultaneously began my sort of coming out journey and then realized like that's the story that I wanted to tell and that's the movie I wanted to write. And so then I really got going on it.
Guess I'm curious, like, what made you? Why a movie? I guess, like, why was this a story that was best told through film?
I think because it's just sort of um, kind of felt like the story could be told in this amount of time, and kind of you see these friends kind of go through their journey together, and then it kind of it leaves a little open ended, so you can sort of guess what happens next. And there's something I really like about that.
Dakota, this is one of two films you have at the festival this year, and and you're starring, and you're a producer on both of them. So, like, can you talk a little bit about how you became involved in this film, and what made you want to, what struck you about the story?
Um, I met Tig at my 30th birthday because she did a surprise comedy set. And then we kind of became friends from there. And then Tig and Stephanie they sent me the script and asked if I wanted to do this with them. And I love them so much. And then I met Lauren and loved her. And I thought the story was important. I thought it was, not too self-serious, but very real and honest without being heavy. And there's levity to it, which I always find nice when there's difficult, complicated subject matter. And it's complicated, but it's really not. It's quite simple. And I thought I always love watching like female friendship movies. It's inspiring and fun to me. So I wanted to make it, and then I also like had started my company, and this was a smaller film, and I basically just forced my company upon everyone. I kind of was like, yeah, I'll do this if you let me produce it too. And they kind of had no choice. That's the truth. Um, and it turned out okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a fan. I thought it was a great film. Sonoya, I guess a similar question to you. What about the script or the story, or even the character, like, struck you? What resonated with you about this?
Well, oh gosh, many things, but I like Dakota, like Dakota said, the first thing for me was the female friendship aspect, and I had never really explored that in my work. So that was something I thought would be really interesting, really fun to do. And I guess like character-wise, I'm like Jane, a woman in my 30s, and trying to navigate a career and significant relationships and wanting a family, which I'm sure she does as well, and all of those things which are kind of big things. And I think that this idea of like being in your 30s and having everything figured out is not true for me, and I don't think it's true for these girls at this point. So I really like the idea of kind of like looking at that.
Well, for Dakota and Sonoya, what is it like to, like, what did it take to develop? Like, you have to make like an instant friendship happen. What was that process like?
Yeah, and also we were doing it in COVID, so we couldn't really like hang out, like
Yeah.
we might not do. But luckily Dakota's just an amazing actress, so she made it easy for
I
me.
really didn't like her. It was just pretend.
No.
No, we luckily really got along well and like enjoyed each other, and also everything was on the page. Lauren did a really
Yeah.
fantastic job of setting it up really well. I think because she has this incredible friendship to draw from in her own life. So there was a layered relationship on the page, and that was really easy, I think, for us. But then also we had such a good time doing it that a friendship naturally happens. And Sonoya is brilliant, and it was like a true lovely time.
It was, yeah, it was, yeah, like Dakota said, it was easy. And I think that genesis of Lauren and Jessica being at the heart of it just kind of like gave it something that was so easy to kind of take from.
Yeah. Also, like, because it was during COVID, yeah, we couldn't really hang out or spend time together off set. But then on set, it was early COVID, and COVID police was like, "Hey, you two stand too close to each other." We're like, "But we're about to be in a scene where we're like in a bed together." But in the meantime, before that, you have to wear a mask and a shield and stand really far away from each other. And it was like impossible. So the fact that we were able to create a real friendship and have that translate on screen, I bet you if it was like normal times, this movie would be impossible to top because of how amazing our friendship is. Or would have been.
I mean, you both mentioned the COVID of it all. But how hard is it to, one, be creative, but also just get work done, I guess, in these pandemic times?
I mean, I can start by saying I think it's extremely challenging, and I think making a movie, you want to be really intimate with people, and you want to really get in there, and you want to talk to people, and when you're kind of being policed and you sort of have to do everything on Zoom, you sort of have to find a new way to do those kinds of things. And so we had a lot of Zoom conversations and a lot of pre-Zoom conversations before we would do a scene. And then you sort of hope you've covered everything. And then it's like, it was also that time, like there would be everybody on crew and they'd take their mask off and you're like, oh, that's what you look like. Like you're so used to seeing everybody in fields and masks that it's like, and then finally you look through the monitor and you're like, oh, right, that's how the world's supposed to look. So it was just bizarre.
Also, like hiring people over Zoom when you'd like create, you know, in pre-production, doing everything on Zoom, you don't actually get to feel everyone's energy in the same room.
Yeah.
And then you get on set and you're like, oh, we don't vibe at all. This is not going to work. Or like, oh, you're absolutely an alcoholic and you've been drunk this entire time. Like you just never know because everything is over Zoom. You don't have like a real interaction with anybody.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I found that I was working I worked so much. I've been working so much during the past year because you can have so many Zooms in a day. Instead of like going from meeting to meeting, you could only fit a couple. And then now it's just like Zoom, 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 Zoom all day.
And everybody's like all over the world on every Zoom you're on.
Well, Tig, how did you find, you know, like directing your first movie during a pandemic?
Well, you know, I have to say it was very much one of the most terrifying things to say yes to, because it's such a big undertaking, as well as, you know, really getting in touch with how it felt to say, yeah, I'm going to take this leap in a pandemic without a vaccine and not a lot of experience from people going into or coming out of a production yet. I mean, it was a lot, you know. I think that having Stephanie there with me is always a comfort, and we've worked on so many different projects together, and I think that put me at ease. And then just being excited about the project in general was helpful in the luring process. But yeah, I'll say I feel very thankful that we were able to do it together.
I do want to get back into the story of the movie. I think a lot of coming out stories we see in pop culture, it's mostly, right, it's like young adult and teens figuring themselves out very early, and that's the story we tend to get to see, and we don't often get to see that, you know, it's perfectly fine to figure things out, anything, regard, you know, your sexual orientation, anything else, later in life. And obviously 30s is not even that much later. But can maybe Lauren and Stephanie talk a little bit about, you know, being able to craft a story around, you know, this experience of not working, a story about not figuring things out according to the timetable that most people expect.
Yeah, I mean, that was my greatest personal struggle. It felt like I was so late. It felt like it was taking me forever to figure myself out. And I hadn't seen any stories about people coming out, you know, I feel like I've heard of people coming out at like 60, but you don't hear the like 30-year-old version. And so I just was I just had like a very hard time coming out and dealing with it, and so I just wanted to share that story because I hope that it helps other people realize that like there is no timeline to figuring it out, and there's no timeline to figuring like anything out, whether it's what you just said, you know, like career and sexuality and whatever it might be. you can do all of those things, and you don't have to do it by the time you're 18.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think there's such an emphasis on age just in everything. And the idea that people beat themselves up to go, oh, I'm so late, or I should have done this already, so therefore I won't do it. Where everybody's going like, no, you have to do that thing. If something's calling you, you don't, it's not easier to not do it. It's harder to not do it. And the other side of that thing is so great and so wonderful. And if you can just allow yourself, like, go easy on yourself and go toward it, that's what everybody's hoping for you. Whether it's coming out or even just anything you want to do.
I just wanted to say, I know you were directing that more towards Stephanie and Lauren, but I just wanted to say that I just love sharing this because I was invited to this film festival in New York, and there was a documentary about these stand-up comedians that were in their late 80s, and they started stand-up in their late 80s. And I got to interview them, and the documentary about them was just so inspiring. And for me as a comedian to think, wow, you can keep going and keep writing and performing no matter what your age. And also just, not that I'm 9 million years old, but I turned 50 this year, and it's just, the film was just such a, it was just so incredible to watch, and it was just inspiring to me, and it reminds me of this theme, of course, that we're talking about, because truly these people were almost 90 years old, just starting stand up. Wow. It's incredible. It's incredible, and they're hilarious.
What's it called?
Well, I can't remember that. It's been a few months, but I wish I could remember. But man, is it inspiring. It's so great. I'll email you. I'll look it up and email you. It's so good.
Okay.
Well, Sonoya, how have you, been finding, what is it like to live through the story, I guess, sort of the film? Like it's yeah, just, I guess, as a person in your 30s, just this idea of still figuring things out.
Yeah. So me and Jane, I think, have kind of similar points of views of the world, but we're actually quite different. So, it's fun to play someone who's different to you. Jane's very like, these guys would call her type A personality and very business-like. And that's kind of not me. So that was that was fun, learning how to speak fast because I speak very slowly, that kind of thing. But yeah, like I said, in many ways we're similar women in our 30s and who are trying to figure things out. And this kind of, I think that I think what happens in your 30s is you start kind of looking inwards and figuring out, what you really want as a individual and what's kind of true for you, as opposed to like looking outwards for guidance and reassurance and everything else. So there's a real kind of shift that is happening, and I think it's not just happening for Lucy and for Jane as well. So I could totally relate to that.
And Dakota, what are aspects of Lucy you could relate to?
I think that I understand the feeling of not wanting to do something because it's too late, that I'm a certain age and I can't like do better or do that, there's this weird, I think it's for everyone, but especially for women, it's like once you reach a certain age, you can't become something else, or you can't be a side of yourself that you really want to be. or explore a side of yourself, or grow in a certain way, or like develop a new skill. You know, it's like you have to have already perfected things by a certain time and be a fully realized being. And I find that stress. I feel that in my life. Like there are things that I want to do, and I catch myself thinking, ugh, it's too late. But like that's really just not the truth. I just got a pottery wheel for Christmas, so you guys can all expect some dishes.
Oh, I want one of those.
Yeah, and
See,
oh, go ahead, Tig.
no, you go ahead.
I've had this conversation with my sister before, who's a year older than me, of just that when you're young, that idea, your friends or your siblings that are like, try to keep you the same, of like, oh, that's not who you are. Oh, you're wearing that now. You're like this. Why are you changing? And this sort of ever ongoing thing of keeping someone however they've said they are in that place and sort of down. And I think to kind of embrace the idea of like, oh, now you're this and you're no longer that, that's great. Is like, it's a nice way to live.
And I think that through. That kept, like, when I know, that was one of my biggest things, was like people who knew me in my 20s, not that they thought I was like, tried and true heterosexual, but they thought one way, and I was like, I don't want them to like now have to think of me in a different way. And that's silly because you can evolve, feel free to do so.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than painting yourself into a corner in any aspect of life and then being stuck there by your own doing.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to spend some time with some audience questions that we got over social media. Mind you, obviously most of these people have not seen the movie, but so we had a poll on our LA Times Twitter, and the winner of the poll that we wanted to know is who was the funniest person on set?
George Clooney. He put whoopee cushions under everybody when they got up, and so that was silly. That was my experience. I thought he was the funniest on set. But
I would say it was a pretty fun. I can't answer that myself. I feel like it was a pretty funny set.
There were a lot of people. Yes. I think Tig in a wig might take the prize.
I always forget about that.
Yeah.
Never forget. Never forget.
I don't want to give anything away for people who haven't seen it yet. But speaking of taking a wig, how many outtakes were there on that scene?
Well,
a lot.
Sonoya, I feel like that was a very, I don't know. It was basically one take. It was one take.
I think it was pretty even of like Sonoya breaking and then Tig not knowing her lines was probably even.
And it was hailing. It was hailing.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Listen, I tried my best, okay? I did my best. I auditioned for the part. I auditioned.
Right. Well, I thought it came out great. We also have some questions that were submitted. Here we go. This is a question from Letitia Drijard from Twitter, and
hey, Letitia,
they want to know if all of you could make another movie together, like what kind of movie would it be? Would it be like a drama or a comedy, like a genre of films? If you can all work together again.
Oh gosh.
Well,
We could make.
I'd say we're gonna stay in our lane and just stick to like a mediocre comedy.
No giant action movie with special effects.
That's Tig's. That's her department.
Yeah, I'm a action star, so that's my thing. But you know, I mean, Stephanie was talking about a spinoff for Tig in a Wig, so maybe we could follow that story. Lauren, can you start writing, please?
Yeah, I'd love to see where she goes home.
Where she what?
Yeah.
Where she goes home.
Oh, Where She Goes Home. And that's the name of the film. Where She Goes Home.
That's a good title.
Where She Goes Home. And what it turns out, I just turn around, I go right back in from Where She Goes Home.
That is.
I mean, I can't wait for the festival circuit for that film.
You're
do you
gonna
have another
to.
question? I have another question from Martha Ojeda.
Hey,
and
Martha.
They want to know if Tig and Dakota, if you two would ever do another stage show together, like the one at the Largo.
I think Dakota's going to say no.
That feels like I spent 9 hours of my life on that stage with you, and you've totally thrown it away. Where is it? Where is it?
I haven't thrown it. It's it is taped and locked in a vault. But I think you made it clear that you would not do that again.
I would do it again.
You would stay on stage with me for 9 hours? We're what?
We're going on tour together.
Oh, yeah. You're going to meet me in Rhode Island?
Yeah.
That would be a fun surprise for the audience if I introduced my opening act, Dakota Johnson, and then I interview you for 9 hours, and then I do my hour and 20 minutes of stand-up.
Yeah. I don't even have enough in the bank to be interviewed for 9 hours. I have like nothing. I'm good for like 15 minutes.
No, you were good for that length of time you were on stage at Largo. It was like, I felt like I was on drugs. It was so...
Yeah, you said it was going to be 15 minutes, and it was 2.5 hours.
You thought it was, you showed up thinking it was going to be 15 minutes. You told me that you thought it was going to be like a talk show, like on TV. And then you're like, I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can battle it out later, but.
I felt so bad because I invited my brothers and my friends to come because I was like, you guys can watch Tig be funny and like make fun of me for 15 minutes. And then it was them sitting there listening to me talk, which like my brothers, they don't want to do that at all for 2 hours.
I was there and I loved it. And I felt like I was on drugs in the audience.
It was very funny.
It was really great.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, Tig, Stephanie, Lauren, Dakota, and Sonoya for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
thanks
much.
for having us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.